Knockouts and 3 counts starts now.
What up? No, it is another Tuesday. This is Knockouts and 3 counts. And if you can tell by the title, it looks like J-Bone may not have made it back out of the Forbidden Door. It is his birthday. He's out with his family. Happy birthday. Go enjoy. Just don't get caught in the Forbidden Door vortex. But we got to talk about King of the Kill and a lot of other stuff in the wrestling world, and including our two worlds of MMA and wrestling combining too. But we're going to start with King of the Kill, and how are we going to do that better than with our homie Chris from Ruthless Pro Wrestling? I appreciate you having me out at the show as well, dude.
Absolutely. Anytime for you, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. How are you feeling off of King of the Kill? How do you feel like this ranks as opposed to the other King of the Kills? Like, what were your standouts? What are your broad scope thoughts before we dive a little bit into what was King of the Kill?
I'm really proud of this year's King of the Kill. I think every year I try to bring like a unique lineup that make it kind of fresh and different, and we always try to find something unique to happen that'd be a big spot to make it kind of different than the last years. Like, previously we did the barbed wire trampolines and stuff. There was no injuries. Everything went pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. I think the fans had a good time. It seemed like people that watched the stream really enjoyed the show. So I think us and our team are all really proud of what we accomplished out there. And it seemed at the end of the day that everyone had a really good time.
I had a damn good time. It was a good time being out there, and you guys held off the rain pretty much, because the way it was looking heading up there, I was like, man, it looks like it's about to get rained down on this thing. And
that is the King of the Kill curse. Every year it's outside, and every single year there is a chance of rain, and it almost rains every year. And this one, I think it started pouring down, 5 minutes after the last match?
Yeah, I know. I got there like right as the first match started, and I'm like, shit, okay, it's not raining yet. And then it, like, literally as the last match went, I was like, yep, that's my cue. I need to get my ass up out of here.
Yeah, I felt bad. Like the last match ended, I was like, oh, thank God. And then it came time to break the ring down, and it is just dumping rain. I was like, oh man, this sucks.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't sound like a fun time. But King of the Kill was a fun time. For you, as far as like, this is what, the third King of the Kill? This is King of the Kill 3, right? Yeah. So how do you feel like this one differed from the first two? How do you think it was better? Is there anything you wish you could have changed with it?
I wouldn't say, it's like picking your children. I wouldn't say it was better, but I would say I'm very proud of it. And I think that every year I kind of like strive to make something unique with them. I was really happy that, every single year we've been blessed enough that we can bring over some foreign talent for these things. I was really happy having Jack Harrop and Iceman come over from the UK just for the weekend to do it. In the past, we've had Joel Bateman and Shadow WX. Guys,
I was there for that.
Yeah. So it's always nice that when this thing comes up, we could always deliver to our fans, somebody that they don't normally get to see in the United States. And then this year we got to mix it up with some legends too. We brought in Masada, and Schlack and Eric Ryan and all those guys that are, just mainstays and some of the best that are going today. So I think at the end of the day that when you look at the three King of the Kills next to each other, they do have similar through lines, with that being, the international talent, the crazy spots, the deathmatch tournament, but that we have strived to make them all have its own unique feel. If that makes sense.
I definitely think it did, especially with, talking to you while some of the matches were going on and you telling me how you wanted different participants in this year's tournament than a lot of the regulars and stuff like that as well. So that right there is telling me that you want a different look as far as to not only like how this is going to end, but who's competing in it as well. But before we get into what happened inside the tournament, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was we all thought that we were getting MDK in this one. And as we all saw, he showed up at GCW Homecoming. I know you wanted to address some of that stuff. So floor is yours.
Yeah. I just want to touch on this a little bit because there has been a lot of miscommunication online. There's been a lot of narratives being thrown around. And I just want to be completely transparent on why Nick Gage was not there. Nick Gage was booked for the show. I had been in constant communication with him up until the show. His plane ticket was booked. He needed a deposit to take the booking. His deposit was paid in full. Up until the show happened, I had been speaking to him all the time. I did not myself find out he was not going to be there until 8:30 the night before the show. And how that transpired was he didn't call me. He texted me. And he would not give me an explanation why. What he said was, hey, I'm sending you your deposit back. I won't be able to be there tomorrow. So instead of arguing with him or like trying to just force him to be there, I was like, the guy's not going to be there. He sent me my deposit back. I did have to eat his plane ticket, which sucks, but whatever. And then I got working on finding a replacement the best way I could, less than 12 hours away from bell time, and needing to replace someone with like Nick Gage with somebody that I thought would be able to at least give on the quality of match that people were expecting. And that wasn't just, me calling anyone that I could find, but me trying to find, somebody that would represent the tournament well. And luckily enough, I was able to get a hold of Mickey Knuckles and get her there. But, I've seen a lot of fans say that we weren't transparent, or that we didn't know he wasn't coming the entire time, or that, we were keeping it from them. No, that was not the case. We went from finding out at 8:30 p.m. And mind you that this is also why I'm getting people picked up from flights and taking them to hotels and Airbnbs, making sure everything's situated for the next day, making sure everyone's supposed to be where they're at, and then having to, at the last minute, not only replace them, but get a hold of my graphics guy to get lower thirds made and all that stuff. So I'm normally always as transparent as possible with everybody. So that's what happened with Nick Gage. We had every intention of having him there. Had I thought he was going to pull out, I would have never wasted anyone's time. And he was one of the first people I booked for this, right when he left GCW. And that was before he did start missing bookings. So I had nothing but the best intentions of him being there. And it's unfortunate he wasn't.
Well, I'm glad that you had the platform to tell what really happened with it. Obviously, we saw that he showed up at GCW and all those things as well. But obviously, it's a bummer for you being the one who had him booked for King of the Kill, and obviously not being able to deliver, not by any fault of your own, and then, like you said, in such a last-minute fashion with not a whole lot you can do. And I think, like I said, I think all in all, I enjoyed the tournament. I think the overall sentiment from everybody that was there was that we enjoyed the tournament. And Mickey Knuckles is a name that we see a lot here in Michigan, with her being at Horror Slam and other places like that. You got any take on the whole GCW spot with her?
With the getting kicked out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and not give my opinion on this, simply because I feel like with what happened with Gage and all that, I should just tread lightly on starting any beefs there.
No, I feel that. I feel that.
And my bad. I do have my own opinions on it, but it's one of those things where I feel the people that were behind the decisions felt they were making the best decisions for their companies. So that's all I'll leave it at.
I feel that. And I didn't mean that as in any type of nitpicking, dirt picking. I only brought it up just because that's been the thing that's been in the news with her. But like I said, Mickey is somebody that we see here in Michigan all the time. I think she was a great replacement for the tournament. And I think, she connects with a crowd here a lot just because, like I said, she has that familiarity around here, whether that's where we were or in Detroit or wherever else.
Well, Mickey also used to be a mainstay for us, and then she'd been gone for a couple of years from here. So I also thought it'd be, kind of cool for the fans that we brought her back,
Hell yeah. All right. So let's start from the top of this thing. One of the things that stuck out to me with this tournament was how a lot of the names that I think you would originally think would be locks or favorites, so to speak, as far as the tournament, ended up, getting an early exit, which that was interesting, but they were good matches. And one of the guys that stuck out to me, because it was the first time I've ever seen him, was Jack Harrop. Talk to me about what we saw from him and being able to take somebody out like Hoodfoot and win the belt, and then we'll get to what happened after that.
Jack Harrop, this is the second time we've used him. I was lucky enough to have him in Las Vegas for our Mania show this year, him and his father, Iceman. And we got along so well, and, they really wanted to be a part of this thing. And I think that, we have our favorites over here and they have their favorites over there. And I think that it was a nice showcase for them to be able to come over there and like show their ability and talents. I think that the matches that we set up for them were great for showing who they are as wrestlers, like Iceman with Masada, both old school legends. I think Harrop and Hoodfoot have a lot of similarities in style. And I was very happy with how it turned out. And as far as what you're saying about surprises and people, I was seeing online everyone's predictions of who they thought was going to win. And I think no one really saw coming what we ended up doing. And I'm very happy with that, because I think at the end of the day, that's a large risk to take. But I think in the end of the day, we made the right decision, and that it ended up going over well, because, I was nervous the entire time on how it was going to go,
So with Jack Harrop, man, I like one thing that stuck out to me with him is I always have found it very I like when somebody uses an out of the way like entrance theme, right?
Yeah.
Like Electric Avenue is not what I think of when a guy's getting ready to go to a death match. The same as like how Matt Tremont used to use Separate Ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Jerry.
Yes, man. And like I said, it's not what you think of, but it's so dope. Even when you think of like Effie and the Yellow Brick Road thing, you know what I mean? Like I like those. I think are awesome because they're like you get the sing along entrances like that. And again, I think I speak for maybe not just me, but all other people who were there. And shout out to everybody who's watching this. Says we got about 235 people in here right now. Make sure you guys like, share, and comment on these streams for me real quick, and let people know you're watching. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Get you a shirt too. We got plenty of those. But dude, I liked that. Immediately kind of set the vibe to me, and that was kind of cool because I feel like I wasn't the only one that was the first time maybe they've seen Jack Harrop, but they haven't seen him live, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for him to be taking on a guy like Hoodfoot, who also happens to be a past guest of the show, so it kind of had me up in my feels a bit. But seeing him go in there and being able to take out somebody like a Hoodfoot and take the title off of him, I think that immediately kind of like cements Jack, whether it is a while again before you get him into Ruthless Pro, like to come in here and get a win like that over a Hoodfoot and take that belt, that says something.
Well, I'm going to address a few of the things you just said. First off, it's not going to be a while till we see him back. Him and his father are joining us for our next show, which will be September 20th at 1720 Arena in LA, which is called Bleed for the Cause. It is going to be a fundraiser for the Cancer Children's Hospital in LA.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be an all-day music festival with wrestling and metal bands. But Iceman and Jack are returning for that. So won't be a while till you see them again. They'll be back in less than a month. Second, I know it doesn't seem like the music fits until you get to know Jack Harrop. He is a silly man. And you want to talk about an energy to be around, like you can't help but just be like, he has a very childlike sense of or way of carrying himself where like you can just tell like no matter what's going on, he's having fun. And he has these road blogs called Jack Harrop on the road. And if you watch these, like before he came to King of the Kill, he was at a Walmart in one of those electric scooters passing around just fucking with people. Like he's a goofball. So I do think that music actually fits. And like when you get to know him, like actually represents like who he is as a person. because Hoodfoot's very similar in the same way. Like if you get to know Hoodfoot outside of the ring,
Mm-hmm.
very funny, fun, silly person, but he doesn't have still has a serious in-ring persona. So I think not only does that set the right tone for Jack, but also I think by Hoodfoot going under in the very first match, it showed people in the tournament that what you think was going to happen tonight, it probably isn't going to happen. We wanted to throw it some now we got you guessing again because everyone was positive Hoodfoot was winning the whole thing. Everyone's like either Hoodfoot or Gage or Hoodfoot or Masada. That's what everyone kept saying, Hoodfoot or Masada.
Well, I mean, that would have worked out good for us. I mean, either one of them are past guests of the show, but like I said, that was I enjoyed it. And when I said that, I don't mean that Electric Avenue was like a bad pick for him by any means. I'm just saying, especially if it's your first time seeing him and you don't know what to expect, you're just like, oh, what the fuck? But then after he comes out and gets you into it, like I said, it was cool. And as you talked about, his dad, Iceman, was in this as well. And he announces after he won the title that he's got another kid on the way to his dad, which it took me a second to put 2 and 2 together that they were, that was his real dad. I thought he was saying it was like his wrestling dad. And I'm like, oh, shit. No, he means it's his real dad.
So he found out in real time that he had a grandson. Like that's how Iceman found out that his grandson was on the way. So all that emotion, that was real. Jack took me aside. He's like, do you mind if I do this tonight? And I was like, 100%. So when you saw Iceman tearing up a little bit and getting a little emotional about it, that was 100% real. What's going on, Corey?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you been?
I'm all right.
We were just getting to talking about some of King of the Kill 3, which went down this past weekend, which, Corey, you got to drive the bike out there to this place. It's nice driving out there, too.
Where was it at this time?
Same place, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is good. It's definitely good riding out that way.
Yeah, went down there. We were talking about Jack Harrop that came from across the pond and made quite the impression with his entrance with Electric Avenue, and then went on to have a match and beat Hoodfoot for the RPW belt, and then proceeds to tell his dad that he's about to have another kid, who his dad happened to be in the first round and fought Masada. So it was knockouts and 3 counts guests all through this bitch. And like we were saying, the outcomes to the way that this tournament went down were definitely one of the standouts. And just because a lot of the people that you would have thought would have been favorites went out early in the tournament, which brings us to the second one of our guests that went out early. And that's the deathmatch jackass, Dale Patricks. Dude, it was dope seeing him back in the States. For those that don't know, he's been doing his thing over in Japan. And, now he's back over here doing his thing. And I'm not going to lie. Especially, I kind of liked a little bit of the pre-match verbal joust that we saw. Because, it kind of, threw a little bit of story to it other than it just being another fight within a tournament.
Yeah. I mean, those guys have a long-standing history together. They're both Indiana guys. They both kind of come from the same area. They have a lot of history. And, Dale was our first deathmatch champion ever. So, there's a lot of history going on there, too. So, I was really proud of how that one went how that one went as well.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it was good to see Dale and chop it up with him for a bit while we were in the back after some of the stuff got done and got over with. Always good to see him. But like I said, another one of our guys went down in the first round, but Masada did not go down in the first round. He had a hell of a run in that tournament. Talk to me a little bit about Masada's run through King of the Kill 3.
Well, I got to give it to Masada. I know a lot of people that were watching the stream, we did the 10 bell salute at the beginning, not only for Ryan Beavers, but who, had been with us at both previous King of the Kills, but for Masada's father. Masada's father passed away on last Monday, right before the show. I gave him the option to not be there. I was like, we completely understand. As somebody that lost a parent myself, I knew what he was dealing with. And he was like, no, you know what? I need to be with my friends. I need to be with my wrestling family, and I need to be with my fans, because what am I going to do? I'm going to be at home and be sad. So, you know, he came out, and I think it was a little cathartic for him, you know, and I think being able to be around the fans, you know, I know he got a little emotional hugging Andy on the way out, and being with his people like Schlack and all those guys, you know, like kind of helped keep his mood up a little bit, you know, with the heavy stuff he was dealing with. I mean, even today, he sent me a voice message from his mother, thanking us for doing the 10 bell and for still having him out, and that she was watching, and that she was really happy about how much we respected them and honored her husband. So for him to come out dealing with all of that and still put on the show he did, going 3 rounds, you know, match after match. And, you know, there was that scare towards the end where we really thought
that was fucking scary as fuck.
I mean, my heart sank. I was like, if I'm the guy who show crippled Masada on this weekend, I don't know how.
Well, bro, and then when the referee is like, get somebody the fuck out of here now, like just yelling and screaming. This dude didn't need no fucking microphone, dude. And I'm like, damn.
We were all freaking out.
I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm just saying, you know, if you're watching in the crowd, if the ref is freaking out like that, some crazy shit happened. I'm not saying that as any type of diss. I'm just saying immediately you knew it already looked gnarly, but when he went and checked and then went back over there like that, I immediately knew. I'm like, oh shit, this is nasty.
When I got over there, he was saying he couldn't feel his legs. We all thought the worst immediately.
Yeah.
After a few seconds, he's like, all right, I'm moving him. I'm fine. But that's why he was screaming and freaking out like that, because we had thought he should back injury, and we were really worried about him. You know, we took him into the back. I was like, let me get you a water. He's like, fuck that. Get me a beer. Like, all right, he's fine. And then within 10 minutes, he was up and walking around. And I'll tell you, by the end of the night, you know, like we all hung out after the show, and we're having a good time. He was 100% fine. He's 100% fine now. So it was just a scary moment. We think he just kind of came down on his back wrong, maybe pinched a nerve for a second. And, you know, we were all just wanting the best for him and just hoping that, you know, everything was all right and trying to take care of whatever the situation was going to be, you know?
Yeah, Corey, he took a nasty bump on his neck, and like I said, immediately, shit just flumes like, oh shit.
I mean, whenever, from what it sounds like you guys are describing, whenever somebody's down there, you know, yelling in pain, and then on top of that, they're froze up from, you know, crashing down on their neck. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty terrible combination for sure.
It's very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as somebody like yourself, like the event organizer, like you say, the person kind of behind the scenes, like, you know, you're hoping the best for them, but you're also like, there's so many things that may be at play if something actually does happen, you know?
Yeah, Kyle and I were standing next to each other when it happened. I just ran right the fuck off. I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, there's no time for reaction. It's just, what is the next step that I need to take as, you know, the facilitator?
But he's fine. Just a scary moment that, you know, thank God was just whatever it was, it passed quick. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of the fans that camped out that night or hanging out here will tell you that he was in the pavilion hanging out with them all night. And not only was he in good spirits, but he was having a good time. So
that's what you love to hear, right?
He was good. It took him a minute to kind of like get his faculties back. I shot the shit with him in the back, and he told us Masada is next for Power Slap. Uncle Dana called Masada to do Power Slap.
I'm not sure you're supposed to be talking about that.
I mean, we had Hardcore Hillbilly on here with us, and it seems like Corey, did you see?
I don't think he's supposed to be. I don't think that's supposed to be out yet, buddy.
Well, fuck. All right. I didn't know that.
He probably should have told me that, but like, yeah, there's.
I was gonna say he definitely didn't tell me that. Anyways,
wasn't being proud of.
We'll take
potentially in the works. Allegedly,
we'll take a right turn.
We'll
take a right turn on that one. But what I do want to talk about is Eric Dillinger, though. He's a guy that I've seen a bunch. I'm not super familiar. Like, I've seen him in a bunch of different tournaments, and I've seen him wrestle here a bunch of times. But I really liked his ride through the tournament as well because, dude, that guy was fucked up by the end of it, man.
Well, he went 4 rounds. I mean, and it was with nothing but killers. You know, he definitely earned his belts that night. You know, and I think Eric Dillinger is kind of we're talking about like the new up and comers in the deathmatch scene and like who are going to be the next names, and I firmly believe that Eric Dillinger is going to be one of those people. The guy, his in-ring work is incredible. He does good promos. He's a very professional wrestler. Like he's very he handles himself well. He's very easy to deal with. You know, he's just an all-around, well-rounded guy. And I'm not surprised that it went this way for him. You know, I think all he needed was something like this to get more eyes on him. And I think within a year from now, you're going to see him absolutely everywhere.
I mean, his run through the tournament was nuts because it's like that's the cool thing with it too, as far as like rounds and that kind of stuff. What up, Kelvin? Shout out to the Bob Culture Podcast guys. We always appreciate y'all as well. Keep up with what they're doing. Hell, you might even catch a few things from me on there as well. What was crazy to me is like for those that don't know, so you have your 3 rounds in the tournament, and then the winner of that ends up fighting Schlack at the end of it, which Tommy Vendetta told me that he was pretty pissed that there was the King of the Kill belt. He's like, what the fuck? Where was that when I was King of the Kill?
Yeah, he's not happy about it. I might get him one just to tide him over because, well, you know, I wanted to make this tournament somehow different than all the other tournaments. So like you got to have like something that just makes it a little different. And what I came up with was like think about Mortal Kombat. You would go through the entire tournament, but then you'd have to wrestle Shang Tsung, right? Mm-hmm. There'd be a final boss. Well, what I came up with, whoever won last year's tournament becomes the final boss. And they get the advantage of being the fresh wrestler coming in. And so you have to go through your 3 rounds. And yes, you win the tournament, but if you want to be crowned King of the Kill, you still have to dethrone last year's king, who will be 100% fresh. And unfortunate for Eric, it was Schlack.
Look, man, all I know is a couple people kind of went boom in that match. That shit was pretty wild because at first I was like, wait a minute, what the hell blew up? Because from where I was, my vantage point of like watching them go into it, I didn't see how it blew up. I just saw fucking boom. And I'm like, man, these dudes are getting after it, man. And Schlack is a problem enough just in being Schlack. And then you add exploding things and glass and doors and a lot of shit. It makes for carnage.
We were introduced to a professional pyrotechnics guy. One of the things I always loved when I was coming up was the old FMW matches in Japan, where they would have the exploding boards or the exploding ring and the, you know, like that. And I was like, you know, I made my due diligence to make sure we were doing it safely, but I also wanted it to be spectacular. We planned it all out. So 2 of the sides were wrapped in barbed wire, and then we had 4 satchel charges along 2 of the sides of the ring. So when you got thrown into it, the satchel charges would go off.
I'll tell you this much. I think it was a great idea that you did less is more, because I was at the exploding barbed wire match for AEW when they did that during the pandemic. And like they had so much problems with like the charges and stuff to where like obviously it ended how it ended. So I think the fact that you guys only had the ones you had in there, I think they made like pivotal impact in the match because it wasn't just boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? Like I think that it didn't take away from it.
Originally, the guy also wanted to put into exploding bats, and we decided against that because we thought it'd be too much. We thought there needs to be an escalation, but if it's escalated too much, it almost becomes cartoonish.
Yeah.
That's also why, the first round we didn't go as gimmick heavy as we normally do. We were like, it should be a natural ramp up of violence. So that's how we did it. And I thought, Schlack and I got to talking. He's like, a lot of times those bats don't even look right. They don't go off at the right time, and then it looks dumb. And he's like, we both decided, like less is more on this, and instead of having a bunch of things that go boom in the match, just have the two sides and make it kind of big and spectacular when it happens.
I definitely think it lent to that. Corey, you definitely got to come out with us for next year. Before we get to other topics, you already kind of hinted at the LA show. Tell people what you guys have got going through there. You talked about how it's going to be a charity show and things like that. What are some of the things that we can expect from that LA show?
So, like I was saying before, the show's called Bleed for the Cause, Tables, Ladders, and Charity. And
oh my,
we hooked up a friend of mine who used to live here that I grew up with, moved to LA to work as a cameraman in movies. Well, while he was doing that, he started a card game, like a kind of like a Magic the Gathering kind of thing called Party Wanted. And through him started that, he had met a gentleman named Shane who owns a YouTube channel called Vulgar Display of Gaming. And
shout out to them. They followed us today.
Yeah. He was a fan of my promotion. Didn't know Eric knew me. Eric's like, I know that guy. And they put us in touch, and we ended up getting to talking. And then we decided, why not us come out to LA and let's try to do some good, because, not a lot of people know this, but I lost my mother to cancer not too long ago. It's something that has affected my life greatly. And we kind of wanted to do something cool to get back to that. But not only that, both of us, a lot of his streams is gaming, but also he streams metal shows. So he knows a bunch of metal musicians, and so do I. So we decided to turn it into an all-day festival where it's bands and deathmatch wrestling at 1720 Arena. So some of the bands we got out there, let me pull it up. We got Mordant Red coming from all the way from, we're flying them in from Houston, Texas. We have my good friends in Mutilatred coming from right here in Toledo, Ohio. We have Schlack's band called the Paramedics playing. We have a band called Rip to Shreds, which is a larger band out there. A band called Gone, and a band called Teeth. And then recently we announced our headliners would be none other than Nine Dead, featuring Jonathan Stauffer, who's big deep into the metal thing. So it's us, Church of the Eighth Day, and Vulgar Display of Gaming all got together and are doing this thing. Tickets are on sale now. It's going to be an all-day thing. It'll be streaming live on IWTV. The pre-show will be streaming on the Vulgar Display of Gaming YouTube. But there's also the night before, on the 19th, we're having a pre-party at a place called Knuckleheads. It's just a bunch of the bands, and the wrestlers will all be hanging out. And if you buy
I've been there when we were out there for Mania.
Yeah. And if you buy a ticket to our show, you get into that for free. So it's just like a cool, fun weekend. We're raising money for cancer. Bunch of bands, bunch of wrestlers. We already got Schlack announced. We have Sage Sin announced. Iceman and Harrop are both going to be back. Masada's going to be there. Bobby Beverly's going to be there. Dillinger's going to be there. Hoodfoot's going to be there. We're about to start dropping all the matches this week, so keep an eye on our socials. I mean, this is going to be, we're trying to make it as big and fun as possible, and then use what is looked at normally as a looked down upon form of art, like deathmatch wrestling or like death metal and metal bands, and show that we do stuff too. We're going to try to raise a bunch of money for cancer, which is something that's very close to me and them, someone that's lost my mother to that and that's dealing with it in some other places in my life. It's something that hits home to me. So that's what the next show is, LA, 19th is a pre-show, 20th is a music festival, 1720 Arena.
That sounds like a dope night.
Damn right. You heard it. It's already in the comments, man. If all of you guys who are watching, it looks like we got about 300 people in here right now. Make sure you guys, if you're in the LA area or can be over there, make sure you guys check this one out. He said it. Bleed for a cause. I won't be the one leaking, but if you can be there, you need to make sure you're there and support the cause. All right. Before we get into some of the things of the bigger shows that were going on Sunday with AEW and all those kind of things as well, I need to get both of your thoughts on this. Corey, since you got here a little bit later, we'll go with you first. Obviously, everybody has seen what's happened with the whole Raja Jackson thing and what happened with Psycho Stu. So you being a guy who's more the primarily MMA guy, I want to know, what is your take so far off of what you've seen?
So to run you through my initial timeline of what I had seen and my thoughts through it, because I mean, I feel like this has been a process, or at least for me, I didn't do some vast amount of research once I had seen the first clip come out. I had just kind of have continued to see more and more things. So like I say, to run through my initial thoughts, I seen the first video of the can getting slapped upside his head and was like, he definitely took it too far, but it was like a bit of a revenge, but it was like a real brutal version of a sucker punch is what my initial thought was. And then I had seen more info come out. I had seen a whole apology video come in from what'd you say his name was? Psycho Stu or something?
Psycho Stu.
Yeah.
I had seen him actually like pull him aside and say, "I thought you were part of the show. I apologize. That's my fault. I didn't realize that you weren't." And then I had also seen more, I guess, evidence or whatever you want to call it, of basically the fact that he was just getting egged on by the chat that he was on a stream of. And
there was the guy in the back that was like, "Yeah, you'll get your receipt in the ring."
Yeah, I seen that too, and I think that's so. If that's all it would have been, if he would have got the slam, and it looked like that knocked him out already, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if he would have just slammed him and left it at that and walked away and threw his hands up and acted like he was the biggest hard shit, that would have been one thing. But to viciously fucking throw like punch after punch after punch after, yeah,
Me too.
and it's just a bad he's probably getting in a lot of fucking trouble, but B, it's just a terrible fucking look. And also the fact that it wasn't even like in, like, I don't know, chronical order, I guess, like I say, like the way I seen the timeline of events play out and stuff. I'm not watching streams and stuff, so I didn't see how the whole thing played out. But to see how the evidence has now been laid out and stuff as this has became more of a big story, it's wild to me that they even let him get back into the ring, that nobody was paying attention to the whole lead up into it. To me, it just seems like this whole thing that the fact that somebody let a fucking couple viewers online, like, I mean, I love our viewers, don't get me wrong. You guys can talk all kinds of shit to me. It ain't going to affect my life that much. I'm not going to go out there and try to fucking attempted murder somebody because, oh no, they're going to think I'm a bitch or something. So to me, it's just inexcusable behavior. And that's kind of all I can say about it, is he's probably going to end up serving some real jail time because of it. I mean,
all right, Chris. So you being a promoter and knowing how, what goes into bringing somebody in or anything like that, and you being an indie guy yourself, what are your thoughts on what we've seen of this? And then, like, also as far as like the clips that we've seen of like the guy who told him go get his receipt, and then, all of it together. What are your thoughts on it and what played out?
Like he said, I think we all got it in fragmented puzzle pieces. Mm-hmm. I think it was presented a certain way in the beginning, and then all the other videos started coming out. But my general takeaway is that they brought something into wrestling that doesn't understand how wrestling works. And when we saw the initial thing with the beer can, yeah, it looked pretty fucking rough. And I could understand why someone would have been upset about that. But we also recently saw, there's a video of him behind these things, like being like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you understood how this works. We're supposed to do this angle later. I'm trying to set up why it would make sense that we're doing that. I thought you would sell the beer can and that would have that. And they shook hands and he apologized. So he was laying out like, hey, I'm sorry, I thought you knew what we were doing here, because anyone that's in wrestling would have picked up what was going on instantly. So what I think this is an example of somebody coming from a combat sports world that doesn't understand more of the sports entertainment world of it, to where they let their pride get in the way and didn't understand that there's a way to where you can still get punked on camera and then work it later to where you still look strong and no one gets hurt. I think so. What I think was everything was just incredibly mismanaged. I think if this gentleman didn't know how wrestling worked, he should have been sat down before he was brought in and be like, all right, so this is how we do it. This is how we do a work. This is how we get heat. You know, this is a heel. This is a baby face. This is how we get the crowd to react. So he would have understood that he was just part of a work, which all it was originally just a work. And I think even Raja, after they had the conversation, it seemed like he was chilled out until he was on his little kick stream. And it felt like he let his fans fuel him on. And if you let the internet tell you what to do, if you because they don't give a shit about you. Some of them might, but most of them
they're just looking for entertainment.
Yeah, most of them just want to see something crazy happen. So they'll egg you on to do something dumb. And that's what it felt like when you watched the ringside footage of him just on his kick, like, yeah, I ain't no punk. Oh, really? You think I'm not going to do some shit? Like, I felt like his kick stream egged him on. Yeah. And then I think also he is a trained MMA fighter. And even in MMA, when a man goes limp, you stop.
And that was what you just said. Like, because obviously with us doing the show and me being involved with combat sports as well, I've had a lot of people ask me my thoughts and opinions on this. And my opinion really is kind of a mix of both yours, in that so we all saw the part of the video where the guy tells him he can get his receipt in the ring. Now, I could understand where that's taken a little bit, like you said, Chris, out of context by somebody that doesn't really understand or know wrestling like that.
Explain to them what a receipt really is. What a receipt is, like, from a wrestling world. If someone stiffs you or hurts you, you just give them one stiffy back. And
that's what I was going to say. Like, so when he slammed him, that's what I'm saying. If he'd have slammed him and hit him with one shot after that, and that was the end of it, and he left it, this would be a lot different story than it was. It still sucks that he got knocked out on the slam, but if he had just hit him one time and then got off him and then that was the end of it and then went and showboated or did whatever, you could say, okay, he was a little bit too hyped up. Maybe he didn't know he was knocked out. Okay, that's different. But like you said, again, he's trained enough to know, when you get in full mount on a guy and he's fully laid out like this and not moving to the point where when you're hitting him, his whole fucking head and face is just back, forth. And he's just and you can see that these punches are just crushing him. And of course they are, because he can't brace himself. He can't move. You can't protect yourself or nothing. That's where, like I said, I could have seen if it was okay, he slammed him. He didn't know he was out. I got him with one shot. He told me I could get him with one shot when I got in there, hit him one time, got up and showboated, and that's the end of it. And I could see where you said, okay, I didn't know that wasn't my intention.
Yeah. I mean, like I had said with the slam, if it had just ended at the slam, he could have said, I put a little spunk into the slam.
Especially because that's one of his dad's biggest highlights is the power bomb.
All you had to do was slam him down, see he was out, and just do this.
Throw his arms up and
it would have been
flex on the crowd.
It would have been fine. Yeah, I think the slam is what knocked him out. But that's one of those things where it'd been all right, that sucks that he got knocked out, yada.
Yeah.
When you have somebody that's passed the fuck out, that's knocked out, you can't use because in MMA, if someone goes limp, you stop.
Mm-hmm.
You don't add 21 or 22 punches to an unconscious.
That's why I say, like, if it had just been like the one, because a lot of times even in MMA, you'll see where the guy like knocks him, like maybe knocks him out with a slam, and then he comes down with the follow-up shot and gets him with that one, and you know he's out. Okay, done, over with, good. If that would have been how that would have went, this would have been a lot different.
It made it look so much more malicious in the video and in the replay. The fact that you could clearly see that he was out. The fact that I don't know who the like in-ring ref is, so I don't really want to throw him under the ball or something. I mean, I'm sure they, tried their best in that situation, but it seemed like it went on for entirely too long. You had to essentially wait for other wrestlers to come.
You gotta imagine that's gotta be a shock to him too, where it's like, oh shit, what's going on?
Nobody's
nobody's expecting refs. But let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, the ref is not like this big jacked sumbitch that's gonna just pull him up off him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to call out a ref or nothing, but I'm just saying, if you see this dude just pounding on him, it's gonna take you a minute to kind of process what the fuck's going on.
But if you watch the footage, a wrestler, a very large wrestler that does have MMA background training, was the one to scoop him off, and Raja tried to double leg scoop him.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
On him. So if that ref who wasn't trained in that, who couldn't defend himself, and I'm not saying the ref shouldn't have got intervened, that's completely his fucking job. But I could see that ref most likely getting decimated too.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Larger man that was trained, and the only reason that guy was able to not get him was like he kind of knew how to not let him slam him, and the dude still was biting him and all kinds of shit. They had to get other wrestlers involved.
It was an absolute wild circumstance. I know that much, and like I had commented, it's like some real, like, I don't even want to like say childish as but childish as like young man stupid decision-ish like behavior. Like I had said, to let some other people online egg you on into doing something that now is just going to,
He broke his orbital bone, knocked his teeth out. Like, I mean, he fucked them up, man.
He's still unconscious. They said that he's in critical condition, but he's stable, and that they've had him responsive at times. But they fucked this dude up. They said that at 2 different times he almost died from asphyxiation on his own blood.
Damn.
Like, it's so silly to me that, because it seemed like before he got that kick stream involved, that he kind of got smartened up, and it felt like the wrestler in the back not explaining to him what he meant by receipt, and then letting this kick stream rile him up is what the real issue was.
Yeah.
And, the guy explained to him what a work was. He was like, I was working you, which means that you're setting up a storyline. You're making it make sense that you'll run in the ring later and attack me, because they've already said that already was planned. He was supposed to run in and attack him. So they were setting up a work. They were setting up a storyline, and through a large amount of miscommunications and a young man not being explained how wrestling works, and then being egged on by online people that would rather see the world burn than give your well-being or anyone else's well-being. And then there was, I've seen all these videos. It's like children crying because it was a family event. Like, there's so much blood. Like it is just insane. And that's coming from a guy who blew people up over the weekend and was throwing people through glass,
Yeah, it was a wild scene, but you just hit on something else that we got to talk about. Obviously, we had a lot of wrestling. If you wanted wrestling, you had the major wrestling, you had the King of the Kill, you had all kinds of things going down this weekend. We also had AEW Forbidden Door, which ended in a lights out steel cage match that had quite the spots in that one, which we'll talk about in a second. I just want to say that, Chris, I don't know how much you keep up with AEW, but dude, there were a couple things on this that like stood out to me where I was like, son of a bitch. One of them being Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher are money, and that what's in it, and that in his hand. We're going to talk about that in the cage. I don't need anybody sticking a fork anywhere near my ear. My ears are pierced. Darby, fuck all that. I don't know how you let that one go down, but dude, all in all, I thought it was a great show. It's tough with Forbidden Door because like AEW pay-per-views end up being like 4 or 5 hours, per the show. But I will say, at least in this one, I really feel like, they gave you like your money's worth in terms of like, you had a little bit of everything. You had Tony Storm, which can bring a little bit of the theatrics. You had the lights out steel cage match that was fucking crazy for, the hardcore fans. And then you got the entrance for Will Ospreay where his wife or fiance, Alex Windsor, is like doing the voiceover. So it was like really like New Japan-esque kind of, and with what we saw at the end of that with him being on his way out because they said his neck's messed up. I liked that we at least seen a lot of the tying of the loose ends, for AEW, because a lot of things that people complain about is like the lack of, tying their stories up and things like that. I liked that, although it was a brutal fucking way to do it, the way they took out Will Ospreay at the end with the whole rest of the team on the outside of the cage and they just like crushed him. I think at least that way it ties up the loose end, and then with him getting his neck taken care of, I definitely think that was a cool thing to see. But you already mentioned it, bro. Jon Moxley put a fork through Darby Allin's ear hole. What you're talking about blowing people up in spots. What were your thoughts on the fork through the ear hole? And is that something we're going to see at King of the Kill for?
We have had forks used before, but not in that capacity. Like we've had Matt Tremont through, and Matt Tremont, is known for, he'll fork you in the forehead. I've never really seen anyone go after the ear like that, and I think that's what the angle they were trying to go for.
And he kept turning it around and shit. Yeah. Like it wasn't like he just stuck it in there. He stuck that shit in there and just like doing one of these in his fucking ear. I'm just like, dog, how is this whole bottom of his fucking ear not just ripped off yet?
I'm not gonna like shit on the spot because I do like both Darby and Moxley, big fans, but I didn't think
it was Calvin legit cringe.
I think it just it went from not fun to watch and just a little too much. And again, that comes from a guy who specializes in blood gore wrestling. But I do feel like the way maybe a Matt Tremont uses it, where maybe you're going into the forehead, and like doing some spots like that, causing damage. But like when you got a guy like tied to a chair and you're just kind of like wrapping his
I forgot to mention that too. He was duct taped to the chair too, so he couldn't even like do anything to like
it just felt, I don't know, like I didn't like it myself. And I like both those guys as wrestlers. I
thought it was a crazy visual, but all the extra spinning of the fork was wild though.
As one little spot and then moved on, it would have been fine. But it was just like they just kept doing it and doing it. It was like, fuck me, man.
Violence for violence sake, like no meaning behind it,
It was cool for the shock factor. It was just one of those where, like he said, it was like you're like, oh shit. Like this is
done it for a second and moved on is what I'm saying. Like it just felt like he just kept doing it and doing it. And then if you have somebody tied to a chair and they can't do shit about it, it goes from like wrestling watching like a hostile movie, like that torture porn shit, like you can't defend yourself. You're just watching somebody get mutilated, and it's really weird,
But all in all, that match was dope. Although I gotta say, dude, it was Tanahashi being in there was a little interesting because he was, this is getting like his last run. It's ironic that we're getting the end of John Cena and the end of Tanahashi all kind of at the same time, because he got his spot at the end with the high five flow and they got the dub over the Death Riders and stuff like that. But man, you can see my man is hurting. There you go. Now the craziest spot this year belongs to Matt Tremont at Boss of All Bones. That's by far my cringe. Well, you mentioned Matt Tremont.
I'm assuming he's talking about him and Bear. Unfortunately, I haven't got to watch that yet. That happened on the same night as my show, and I just haven't had time to catch up on it. But I'm sure whatever Matt and Bear did was great.
Kelvin, I need you to do me a favor and check out Ruthless Pro, bro. If you like GCW and all that stuff, you'll like Ruthless Pro as well. Another thing that really stuck out to me on that one is like we were talking about Kyle Fletcher, him and Hiromu Takahashi, dude, son of a bitch. Like, I mean, Kyle Fletcher has put on a lot of size since we got to work with him when we did Circle 6. When they were here, when him and Mark Davis were still together as a team. And like him and Takahashi, man, I mean, it's when you first see him, he's one of them guys, and I'm talking about Takahashi, he's one of those guys that when you see him, like his he always has got like the stuffed animal and shit with him, so you kind of like don't expect what you're gonna see when he gets in the ring. But dude, they threw down and beat the shit out of each other. But dude, I've said it multiple times on the show, and maybe I'm a little biased because I share the same name as him, but dude, Kyle Fletcher is gonna be fucking money for AEW for a long ass time, dude. Like, I really believe that. Like, that dude's a fucking stud. Like, between that match and then like having what happened with him and Dustin Rhodes, like, I like a guy that you can see him be able to do all the stuff, like blood and guts stuff. He can have a match like he did Sunday. All in all, I thought that was dope. Tony Storm, like I mentioned, you had a little bit of everything on this one. Tony Storm versus Athena. I gotta say, it kind of hurt me a little bit to see Athena win or lose. I mean, just because she's been the Ring of Honor champ for so long. But Tony Storm is on the run of runs, I think, in women's wrestling right now. And the stuff she did when she was here in Detroit, utilizing was it the Fox they were at, or was it the Masonic? I want to say it. It was the Masonic. What the fuck am I talking about? It was the Masonic, and her using the little things where you have like the suites on like the sides. I thought was so cool with like the old school black and white thing. So I definitely understand the why she won. We'll see if We'll see if her and Mercedes run it back, because I feel like that could be on the table as well. The other thing I wanted to ask your opinion on, because especially with you booking shows and stuff like that, we also had NXT Heatwave that was on Sunday. What are your thoughts on, and I mean, at this point, anybody that denies that WWE putting Heatwave on the same day as the AEW pay-per-views, like we've been seeing kind of regularly lately, if you're not thinking that shit was on purpose, I don't really know what to tell you. So as a promoter, do you think I thought Heatwave was still a good show, but like, do you think that making these pay-per-views like kind of like that short notice without the big build to it really hurts it a ton?
I mean, if you want my opinion, and this happens completely in the indie scene all the time too. I have people whose promotions do it to me. I think people are very protective of their fan base, and if they're afraid of losing fan base over to another fan base, they will put together almost a subpar show to run against, because they know their fan base will watch the show that they're more comfortable with, or that is their home promotion over, what might even be a better card or lineup. And I feel like that's what WWE's always done. I feel like they're not as bad with it now, like with Triple H doing it. It was definitely much worse with McMahon. But it's one of those things where somebody's always going to step on your neck if you show potential to be able to grow larger than they want you to. And I think that's what they do. They're doing. I haven't watched the NXT one yet. I had to get all my wrestlers back on planes and clean up and all kinds of crap. I just
understandable
recovered for my show today, and the only wrestling I have watched over the weekend was the AEW show. So I haven't watched Heatwave yet.
What was your overall take on that one? Did you enjoy that one, or did you think it was like too long, or where were you at on that?
So I think wrestling fatigue is a real thing. And I can't, I'm guilty of it myself, especially when I was first starting out. I was like, you want to give all the matches, you want to give like all the people you love all on the card. But the problem is that it's hard for matches to stand out when there's so many. It's hard to have big moments you remember when there's so many. It's hard not to get bored or tired Because yes, it might be these people's favorite wrestler or what these people want to see, but there's always going to be those people that are checking out around their phone at these points. So I find nowadays, which is how I book now, a leaner card is always better for the fan, because when a big thing happens, they're not remembering, one of them's not getting buried by another big thing. It's like what we were talking about earlier, like where I scaled back on the explosives and the amount of weapons because it was a less is more kind of thing. And I think that's how things should be booked. I think AEW is very guilty of wrestling fatigue, which is when you go to watch a pay-per-view, I think nothing should be over 3 hours. I think 3 hours is like the cap of what your mind's ready to watch, or like it's something like that. Now, when you hit like the 5 hour mark, you're still bringing in all these people that everyone wants to see, and you're having all these things. It's hard for you to still stay invested. It's hard to remember everything that happened. It's hard to have big moments because everything just feels almost like this long thing, So that's how I think they're too long. I think they just need to scale back and hone it,
I think people's energy levels and batteries for entertainment and stuff are only so full too, especially with like action sports and stuff like that. Like I had just pulled up the card while you guys were talking about it, because for me at least, bringing it back to combat, like I always do, but on the MMA side, the perfect example for me has always been that Kelvin Gastelum in Israel Adesanya fight. Everybody forgets that Holloway and Poirier fought right after that. That was actually the main event of that card. But that was such a drastic moment in all of the history of the card and everything. It almost felt like no matter what those guys did, and it was an amazing fight, it just there was such a lull because of everybody's batteries were drained. We didn't have the energy to put out what we wanted to, even though that was the fight we were tuned into the most,
Yeah, man. I'm glad that they put the cage match at the end, because I think had you put that anywhere else in that show, you would have not been able to like do any of the other stuff that they did. I agree with you, like, because I was at a couple of those 8-hour WrestleManias, dude, and holy shit. By the end of the time you get to the end of that, especially if it's an outdoor and it rains like that, like WrestleMania 35, the one in New York, was like one of the toughest ones I've ever been, because it rained on us and shit, and we all got stuck. It was a wild time. I thought Forbidden Door was a good show. I agree with you. Sometimes I think if they could like compact it into like 3.5, 4 hour show, I think it would make their shows have more hype to them. But like we all talk about all the time, the one thing AEW is good for is having a bunch of matches that are going to be good in-ring shit up and down the card. And I think that's something that we definitely saw from this one. We also saw Obafemi and Ricky Saints do their thing at Heatwave. So there was plenty of wrestling, plenty of the cornucopia to check out. And if you didn't get to check out King of the Kill 3, well, you need to go over to IWTV. You need to make sure you check that out. I'm looking forward to seeing the show that you guys got in LA. Speaking of the guy, happy birthday, son bitch. J-Bone's birthday is today. He made it in just at the end. We're talking King of the Kill 3. J-Bone, I know what you need to watch when you go to sleep tonight for your birthday. You got to go back and watch King of the Kill. And since we're talking about death metal and metal concerts and all those things, shout out to our guy Chris Cale and Five Finger Death Punch that are getting ready to come through here too. If you guys are going to be around on Labor Day, we will be too. I thought you were 50. What do you mean? I thought you was 50. But Chris, as always, my man, I appreciate you coming through. I appreciate you having me on the me out at the event and all that kind of stuff. Having me on the show. How I'm going to be on my own show. But let them know everything they need to know about Ruthless Pro and anything they need to know for LA.
So you can find us on all socials, Ruthless Pro 419 on most socials. We're a traveling deathmatch company that started out here in Detroit. Next show is in LA. Then after that, we're in Chicago at the Berwyn Eagles for Slime Wave. And then after that, we're in Tampa, Florida for Gator Scum.
Gator scum.
So there's our next events coming up. You can catch all of our shows live on IWTV or all our past shows and archived there. We have a bunch of free matches on our YouTube. So yeah, come check us out. And if you want to get any merch, it's brokenmerchtable.com/Ruthless Pro.
Who broke the merch table? Who broke the merch table? You son of a bitch.
I mean, it was the Spanish announce table, so it always gets broken.
Yeah, well, that's fair. You know, that was the opposite at AAA. They finally got the English announce table, them bastards. Also, it'd be remiss if I don't talk about it. Shout out to Carlos Linas, International Promotions. I was out there judging some fights at the casino on Friday. There were some past guests on that show. There were some nasty shots taken. And I'm glad that I wasn't the one getting punched in the face. But as long as I stay out of the mosh pit on Labor Day, I still might not get punched in the face. I said might until next week. You got to make sure you hit that button because we don't want there to be any might involved. We need you to check us out every Tuesday. Make sure you're here. If you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Tell the motherfuckers you're listening, you're watching. Buy you a shirt. It tells you to ring the bell. Maybe it'll help you get up for work. Until next time and in the in-between time, peace.